Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Well, today we will discuss words and phrases from Bill Clinton's interview. He was a guest on David Letterman's show, and I think he is a well-known and famous and respected president, and who is very eloquent. And I think you want to emulate his um, communication skills, correct?
Yes, he's a very good communicator.
You and I have something in common, which is we've both had the heart surgery. And when you have the heart surgery, you can't monkey around. You gotta really do what they tell you.
Okay, so the first one is to monkey around.
Monkeying around originally, or monkey around can typically refer to silly activity. If you ever see monkeys, they jump around, they fight, they play with each other, and very little gets accomplished. So the boss can say to the employee, stop monkeying around and get back to work. It can also refer to something that's very serious, where you have to do very purposeful, effective activity. So when you say to stop, when you say you don't want to monkey around, it means you want to do everything very deliberately. For example, Bill Clinton should probably stay away from double bacon cheeseburgers if he wants to maintain his health. And similarly, anybody with a health problem, likewise, anybody with a serious health condition shouldn't indulge in any of the activities that could possibly hurt them.
Okay, and another expression that's not related to this, but it just uses an animal to make a verb, is to horse around.
To horse around, yeah, that's similar, same general idea. If you ever see young horses, especially, they like to jump around and play, and but with horses, they're pretty big and they're pretty strong. So if they horse around too much, they can actually hurt each other.
And the kids oftentimes are told for running around, yelling, told stop horsing around, right?
Right. And in the case of horsing around, it specifically refers to the possibility of getting hurt by doing something silly.
Is it political? Is it geographical? Is it, like you mentioned, distribution? What is the real impediment?
Okay, next one is impediment.
Impediment is an obstacle. The ped, that's the feet, so something that prevents you from moving forward. Someone can have a speech impediment. They can also have other impediments too. For example, maybe they're not very well educated, or they don't have the resources to be able to accomplish something, but somehow they manage to accomplish it anyway, hopefully.
And speech impediment would be things like stuttering or inability to pronounce certain sounds, right?
Generally, that would refer to stuttering. I suppose it could refer to somebody that doesn't pronounce their words very well too, but usually it's used for stuttering, stammering.
Well, I get to deal with a lot of these things that get ignored. When you're in office, you can deal with big things, and then you have to deal with the incoming fire, sadly, literally, in the case of...
Okay, next one is incoming fire.
Incoming fire originally refers to artillery, because once the guns got big enough that they could hit from a long way away, the first notice that people might have of artillery firing at them would be explosions all around them. So incoming fire nowadays can refer to a lot of different things. In a political situation, it could be referred to getting attacked by your opponents, or in an office situation. It could refer to something bad happening at the company where the people have to be careful or else they could get damaged.
Yeah, so it means criticism. And another word that reminds me, it comes from also artillery, is flak.
Flak, right. Flak is, it's actually a German word. It stands for some long German word that refers to the same thing that flak is, which is fire, which is basically, it's almost like shotgun fire at airplanes. Because airplanes are so far away that if they try to hit them with one bullet, that's very unlikely to hit. So they shoot something very much like a shotgun, or something that explodes in the middle of the air. So if any one of those things hits the airplane, it can damage the airplane. And oftentimes it's not enough to destroy the airplane, but it's enough to damage the airplane.
So if you read or hear that a politician received flack for his actions, he wasn't really shot at, he was criticized.
It would typically refer to criticism that's not deadly or very damaging. It's potentially damaging, but there has to be a lot of it.
Damaging for his or her reputation, not bodily damage.
That's correct.
What do you want to talk about when we come back? You want to talk about Syria? You want to talk about the naval yard that you alluded to?
You can talk about whatever you like.
Okay, next one, to allude.
Allude is a verb. The noun would be allusion. An allusion refers to something that is generally a common event. For example, you could allude to Vietnam, which would mean to refer to the U.S. loss in Vietnam. You could say we don't want another Vietnam, which means we don't want to lose.
Bill Clinton and I are here, I think both looking very presidential tonight.
Okay, next one is looks very presidential.
The idea here is that presidents are supposed to look good.
What?
They're supposed to look like people that you can have a lot of confidence in. And it's part of their public image. So if someone is not very presidential, it means they're presenting themselves in a way that people don't think is consistent with being president. For example, they used to talk about Jimmy Carter that way. They said he was not acting very presidential because he used to carry his own suitcase, which presidents are not supposed to do.
Yes, he's supposed to have servants.
He's supposed to have someone else carry his suitcase for him. And then similarly, they would say that Mitt Romney looks very presidential because he had a certain look. But at the same time, they could use that as an insult. They could say he looks very presidential, but he's still weak.
Disgusting.
Let's start with Nairobi, a shopping mall, a hideous attack.
Okay, next one is hideous.
Hideous is something that's very ugly. So you could say, or either physically, or it could be the way someone behaves. So you could refer to something that happened. You could say it was a hideous incident, which means it was very bad, or a hideous accident. Horrible. Right. Something that's very shocking. Or
maybe hideous remarks.
Hideous remarks. Right. Something not very nice at all.
Hideous house, maybe, if you bought a dilapidated...
You could use it that way too, right. That's where you could take something which you're exaggerating.
Right. So the opposite of you look presidential would be you look hideous, my friend.
You could say you look hideous, right. If somebody's not dressed very well, or If, let's say a woman, she's wearing a dress and her friend doesn't like the dress,
Disgusting.
she could say that dress looks hideous on you. And then she just means it doesn't look good. She doesn't really mean it looks hideous.
Right.
It's just she's exaggerating.
Ugh.
What is that? Where a hotbed of terrorism happens before?
Okay. Next one, hotbed.
A hotbed, I believe it might refer to a greenhouse, or it could also refer to a planter where people didn't have greenhouses, but they would put plastic over the top of the bed of greenhouse to make it warmer. So a hotbed refers to a place where things are growing. And it could be good or it could be bad. You could have a hotbed of terrorism. You could have a hotbed of negative activity a hotbed of criminal activity, or a hotbed of negative activity, gang activity. But it could also be used in a positive way too. For example, you could say Silicon Valley is a hotbed of innovation, or Harvard is a hotbed of intellectual activity. And they also talk about incubators, which is a similar idea, where you have a protected environment where something generally positive can happen, but it can also refer to negative things as well.
Okay. Do you think that with this continuing global warming, the hotbed will run out of fashion in future?
Good question. I don't know. You could call the Earth a hotbed at some point.
Exactly.
which is causing a terrible amount of problem for the interim Somali government.
Next one is interim.
To me, an interim refers to a situation between two other situations. But it could also refer to something of short duration as well. Generally, it's used for governments where one government is changing to another government. So during the in-between stage between the two governments, you have an interim government. You can also have an interim executive. Good example was Steve Jobs. He came in as an interim executive, and I think he liked it so much that he just kept calling himself I'm not sure what his title was. I believe he just kept calling himself the interim executive.
Cool.
But everybody knew he was running the company, and they knew he wasn't going away. So he used interim to suggest the idea of temporariness.
Okay, and also there's expression in the interim, right, which means in the meantime.
In the interim, right. For example, someone, maybe they lost their job, so they're waiting for a new job to start. So they say, in the interim, we're going to go on vacation. Or they sold one house, they're going to move into another house. So they would say, in the interim, we're going to live somewhere else temporarily.
In a tent outside the city.
Exactly.
What you doing?
So I think they said 10 or 15 fighters sneaked in the country and did what they did.
The next one is to sneak.
Sneak in
the building, or sneak in a country.
Right. Well, sneak means to walk quietly. Tennis shoes, another name for them is sneakers, rubber-soled shoes, so you can walk around and people can't hear you walk.
Okay, we get it.
Or
You're
somebody
popular.
might say, don't sneak up. Somebody snuck up on me. Or somebody snuck into the building. Or, for example, or a burglar snuck into the house. And it can also refer to other situations as well. For example, if someone comes in at a low level of a company just to get started, and then they rise up the company, you could say they snuck into the company. For example, I think David Geffen did that. He came in at a very low level and then managed to become a very high level executive.
Can you have a sneaking suspicion?
You can also have a sneaking suspicion too. That's a good expression.
Okay.
Since the terrorism came of age, basically starting when I was president and then with 9/11 after I left office. And
Next one, and the last one for today is to come of age.
Come of age originally referred to a child growing up. So sometime between roughly 18 years old, 21 years old, they become an adult. And but at the same time, they may not be so independent. So coming of age will typically refer to somebody becoming independent. It can also refer to a technology becoming more practical too. For example, television during the 50s, yes, we had television, but it wasn't very good. So you could say the television came of age during the 1960s. Similarly, color TV existed in the 50s, but it wasn't very good. So you could say color television came of age in the 1970s. You can say computers came of age in the 1990s. The internet came of age in the 2000s. Even though the technologies were already developed, they just weren't that good.
All right. So that's all for today. And Tom also. So Tom is a ESL tutor, right? And you teach students in the United States and all over the world. And you can be reached at your website. And what is your website?
ESL-fullsteamahead.com.
Okay. And thank you, Tom. And I will talk to you next time.
Okay. Thank you.